Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Carlson Cards podcast. Should be a phenomenal episode here today. We have on Sal, who goes by @Sal Has Cool Cards, and I have to confess, before I gave up the cleats here with the podcast before having a baby, we had went back and forth. Sal was always going to be that guy that I had just around the corner, and then baby came early, and I decided to call it quits. So now Sal has patiently waited about 8 or 9 months, and I just saw him on another podcast that I really enjoy called Precious Metal Gents. Episode was amazing. So I was excited to get Sal on here again because I think we'll talk about a lot of different topics besides what was talked about on there, including Brett Favre, including team collecting, all of that sort of thing. So, Sal, how are you doing? And thanks for hopping on.
I'm doing well, Austin. Happy to be a part of season 2 here and glad we could finally connect. It's good to see your face too, since it's been a year. We met at the National, and actually it's a good story if you don't mind me just kind of jumping into it. You know, last summer we were both looking at the same booth, looking at cards, and I just started listening to your podcast a few weeks before that, and you kind of started talking with the dealer, and I was pretty sure I recognized your voice. I was going to introduce myself. Then you kind of asked him about a Peyton Manning card, and that's when I knew it was you. I think the card was like a finest gold refractor or something.
That's funny you
But
said, yeah, you had said that, and I was like, what the heck booth were we at? And I remember that card, and I was a 99 finest gold. It was a great deal. I was like gonna pull the
yeah,
trigger, and then I flipped it over. There was no serial number, and then we ended up talking anyway. So it was meant to be. That was why I saw that card, I think.
for sure. Yeah, I think once I've let you kind of figure that out, if that was going to be a deal or not, I called your name. You're probably thinking like, who the heck is this person? So maybe I was your first fan encounter in the wild. I don't know.
If you consider yourself a fan, I look at your collection, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh." But yeah, no, that was cool. I remember because you pulled out, you had just crazy stuff. I think you just got stuff slabbed by PSA or something while we are sitting there, like just casual, like a Favre PMG, a couple other things. I'm like, "Oh crap, I know who you are. I remember following your page. Yep, yep, I know all this stuff. That's amazing."
Yeah, I was probably excited to show off. I had graded a 97 championship Ray Allen PMG and the 98 PMG Ray Allen. Both had gotten PSA 8. So I mean, I got a couple other nice acquisitions at that national, but those were kind of the highlights of that show for me.
With cards like that, did you I mean, just jumping right in and just a question that comes to mind, had you had those for a while and kind of your strategy on cards like that is to just, because I'm sure you seem like a guy that preferences not need to be with graded, you just enjoy the cards as they are. So, did you hold on to them and then we're kind of waiting for a national in your hometown there of Chicago and just, waiting for that opportunity to bring it there in person?
I hadn't had those two for a long time. I think I got let's see, I got the 98 PMG. I think it was maybe fall of 2021. Um, I got that from the guy who originally pulled it back
Oh,
in like
wow.
a local card shop in Texas. And so um, he made a fair deal. I mean, he knew what he had, but it's not like I got a great deal or anything. But kept that one raw for a long time, or really up until last summer. And then the 97 championship was the last Ray Allen PMG that I needed to kind of complete that trio. And I shared this story on that Precious Metal Gents podcast. But I remember I was just sitting on the couch with my wife. It was like a Tuesday evening, and we were watching a TV show. And I got this random message from a guy who didn't really even have like a card account on IG, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a Precious Metal Gems of Ray
I got
Allen.
a precious
Curious."
metal gent of Ray
Yeah,
Allen.
yeah. And he goes, "You want to see some pictures?" And I'm thinking like, I get messaged all the time with like people reaching out and they should want to show me their Ray Allen cards. And usually I'll say 9 times out of 10, it's like just common stuff that I have kind of buried deep in my collection. And he shows me the 97 championship PMG. And I look over at my wife. I'm like, we gotta stop this show. I need to hunker down, focus. I got to take care of this like right now. And
I have
so,
to say that is a piece of advice right there because I've been running this issue where I'm like sucked into my phone and my wife doesn't know why. She thinks I'm just
yeah,
scrolling fantasy football news or something, and it's like, no, I'm not kidding. A card like legitimately, I need to figure this out right now. And so that's a
yeah,
good piece of advice to say that up front. I think I need to work on that a little bit, Sal.
totally. Cause I mean, I didn't know who else he was maybe reaching out to. I'm
Yep,
like,
yep.
I have to make this happen. And so we went back and forth for half an hour, maybe an hour. went to bed. I think we were pretty close on a number, and then all of a sudden I woke up the next morning and he had listed it on eBay, and I was
Ah,
like, oh no! So I messaged him over IG real quickly. I'm like, what is your price so you can pull it off of eBay? He told it to me a couple minutes later, and I agreed on it. I was like, take it down. so so he did. Um, it was a strong price that I paid at the time, but nothing compared to what the championship PMGs are going for now. And then I actually, so that one I graded. Like I said, both of them got eights last summer, the national, and then the championship PMG. I had an opportunity to kind of trade down into a PSA 7. Got a good amount of cash for what I thought was a good amount of cash for it, and that let me get into a couple other Ray Allen Grails that you know I don't regret going down a point 8 to a 7 because of some of these other opportunities that it gave me. So
do you find yourself doing that often where, especially on this super rare stuff where, I mean, the price point's high, they're extremely hard to find, but again, knowing there's like 50 copies, on some of these and that sort of thing, like, do you find yourself often downgrading if you can get enough value out of it and then use that for another card? Is that something like the reverse? I see people chasing the bump from an 8 to a 9 and paying a huge price to do so, but it seems like you did the opposite there. Like, is that something that you do often?
not really. This one just kind of happened to fall into my lap, and I mean, I definitely recognize that there's a lot of value to be had in high grade late '90s cards because I mean, most of those cards you go and grade them right now, and they're gonna they're gonna come back anywhere from a 5 to maybe an 8 if you're lucky.
Mhm.
So eights are really strong. I feel like eights are kind of the nines and tens of modern cards, um, especially when it comes to PMGs, credentials, rubies, that kind of stuff. So I really don't seek it out all that often. If it happens organically, I'll consider it, especially if there's another card that I am looking to get into kind of in the moment. So that was just sort of a perfect series of events that led me to really think about that and have an open mind to it and be okay with it.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So 7 minutes in, I apologize. I'm asking you this way late, but I'd love if you could give like a personal background to everybody. Just tell a little bit about yourself and for anyone that doesn't know you, and then your hobby history. So again, we're going to take a little detour here so people get to know you before we really dive into the collection. So I'd love if you could share a little bit here.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up, I'm from just outside of Milwaukee, grew up in the 90s and kind of got into packs and boxes as a kid. And ripping was all I could think about with any money that I ever had or made. And the peak of that happened for me really between 96 and 2000. It's a good time, obviously. Kobe's rookie year, I was really into basketball, a little bit of football at that point too, but pretty heavy emphasis on basketball. And I just kind of picked products that I thought looked cool based on what I saw in the monthly issues of Beckett magazine. We didn't have the internet at that time, so that's kind of what you had to reference. And so took me until maybe 2002, I'll say 2003, kind of around LeBron's rookie year, to I don't know, mature for lack of a better word, and realize buying singles was the way that I wanted to go, at least the approach that I wanted to take. Um, so as time went on, I opened fewer and fewer packs and began collecting just some fun singles of Packers and Bucks players. Would go after like refractors, neat looking inserts, anything that seemed like moderately rare, rookie cards even too. And I wasn't spending a lot at that time, maybe up to $20 here and there, but you can get some cool stuff when you're doing it over 10 or 15 year span. You accumulate some cool things in your collection. So I kept that going through most of high school, and I think my only pause was probably some of college and maybe
Mhm.
briefly a couple years after that when I kind of went back to school and all. I started to go after some larger cards starting maybe 8 to 10 years ago, I'll say. And then really in the past 5 to 7 years is kind of when I've started to acquire a number of the grails that you'll see on my page if you have a look. And I'll also just add, my interest in going to card shows is um, I've done that for a long time. My dad and I went to a couple local shows in Milwaukee a few times. I even set up as a vendor, I think, when I was about 15 years old. And then, we went to our first national in Chicago. That was maybe 2011 or 2012, and I remember just having such a blast seeing like all these people in the hobby coming together, looking at incredible cards that I've, seen the Beckett magazines for years, for all my life, right? I would dream about walking down aisles and seeing all these showcases after the fact. And at that point, Panini wasn't what it has become today. So everything you saw at those times in the shows, 2011, 2012, it was all like vintage or really the 90s and 2000s stuff that I kind of tend to focus on. Um, so those were some, really core memories, and we've gone to so many shows together since then. But that's kind of my history with the hobby. I've been a collector now, I guess, for close to 30 years. So it's crazy how that time flies.
It's pretty unique too that I feel like you stuck through it. I talked to so many people who where they have a huge gap between, that first beginnings and then getting back in, where it sounds like again you had a little bit of a gap there maybe with some school, but that school you made all the way through. And like, how big of an impact do you think that had on your current collection today? Like, do you view it and think that, like, wow, I'm thankful that I stayed in this because I was able to add a lot of pieces that have helped me get to where I am? Or do you think again, just being so new, maybe it didn't really matter and you just had a lot of fun during that time, but it didn't really help you get to the point you were today with your collection?
I think I kind of lucked into a lot of my PC just because I was able to get into it so early, right? Like I have always thought that precious metal gems are really cool. And so back in, I guess I didn't have my first one until maybe 2012, I think it was. I got just
Only
like a
only
common
2012, geez,
Packers.
only
Yeah.
2012, yeah.
But well, I guess there were people who were probably collecting these back in the late 90s and early 2000s. But because of that, I was able to get into a lot of these great cards at just fantastic prices looking back on. Every now and then I'll do like an eBay or a search in my email account just to see like, hey, what did I pay for that back then? And I'll pull it up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I paid $20 for an Antonio Freeman 99 PMG. Like, what the heck? Wish I could have done that 50 times over,
Yep.
um, but yeah, I think it was just I call myself a lucky collector in that sense, just having kind of been a lifelong one who got into it in the late 90s.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. Grew up with the right era, stuck with it through passion, and it sounds like it paid off. So I have to ask you, a part of this, obviously I view you as a, player collector, but also a team collector to some extent, right? For a lot of, big teams, Packers being one of them. I was really curious if you could touch on, when you started really drilling into the singles there. I guess number one, were you a team collector? And if so, I guess whenever you became the team collector, how did you focus on the players and teams in general that you wanted to focus on? I mean, I guess it's obvious, right? You grew up in Wisconsin, so you're a Packers fan, right? But how do you decide like which eras and then with the player collecting, which players you want to go after? Because you can't collect everything, right? So I'd love to hear like what was your thought process there, especially I feel like that's helpful for those listening if they're thinking of becoming a team collector here in the near future. I feel like that's always a helpful question to have answered.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like any 90s fan, I was very, and still am, very drawn to shiny things. So since the late 90s is kind of just when I started collecting, and the Packers were really good then, right? Winning a Super Bowl and going to another. I'm just so nostalgic for those teams and most of the shiny sets at the time. It's really the perfect opportunity, not just as a Packers fan, but for all of us kind of to pair our love of sports or players with our love of cards. And when you associate those um, players with legendary teams that have such a great historical influence and significance, it's just even better. So I think as Packers fans, we're sort of spoiled, and our late 90s players make us think of the great 90s teams, right? And we get the great 90s cards with it. So it all just kind of marries together, I guess, is kind of where I'm going with that. Is I was sort of maybe handed my decisions of who to collect just based on who's in the 90s sets that I like and their parallels. Obviously there's Brett Favre and Reggie White, but those are kind of the bigger guys in the set who you got to hand over a little bit more than you would with other players. But also regularly in some of those other sets that I chase, you have guys like Dorsey Levens and Antonio Freeman. They seem to be pretty prevalent in a lot of different sets. And then in the bigger sets, you'll see some more fun names like Robert Brooks, Edgar
Mhm.
Bennett, Mark Chimura. I don't know. Do you remember Travis Jervey at all?
No,
He's
I was born in '97, so I know these teams strictly from YouTube
okay.
highlights. I'm a
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately, yeah, I don't have the deep knowledge. I just know from the highlights. So I know most of the names, but the niche guys, that's why I look at these sets. It's always hard because I'm like, damn it, I don't know what that guy's known for on the Packers. I have to look it up.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just don't know.
So Travis Jervey, he was kind of like the third string running back
Sure.
behind Levens and Bennett. But I loved the story about him that I saw in the newspaper once that to kind of teach himself to hold on to the football because it sounded like he had some fumbling problems. He would sleep with a football at night, and I don't know how I couldn't tell you, without looking it up how many fumbles he had after that. But I always liked that story, and he was kind of like a fan favorite, I think, because of that story. Um,
That's really funny. He must
but
not have
he's
been married, is all I'm going to say as well. He must not have been married.
right, yeah, probably not. But I know he's in the '98 Skybox Premium set, which
Mhm.
is just so interesting to see a third string running back in there.
That is
So
that
he's
is
got
bizarre. Is that strictly probably off of the fact that they had won the Super Bowl the year prior, do you think? Like,
maybe, yeah,
that seems strange.
that's possible. Yeah, that would make some sense. So he's got a really cool Ruby's card out of 50. Probably it might be his best card out there, and that one is one that I do have. He's also in the '98 Skybox Autographics set. So he's got
Mhm.
a Century Marks Autographics, which I haven't seen in a long time. I mean, I would imagine that's one I could probably scoop up for, 20 to 50 bucks, and would love to would love to add that one to the PC.
Might have to pull out a football and sleep with it for good luck. Just warn your wife ahead of time, kinda like with the
Yeah,
looking at
right.
your phone, just
Sleep
warn
with
her
my
ahead of time.
sleep with my Jervy Century Marks autographics or the rubies or whatever.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so oddly enough, I was always kind of drawn to credentials
Mhm.
the most at first.
From the very
Um,
beginning, from the
from the very
time.
beginning, yeah.
Yep.
So I just loved those cards. I just didn't happen to get them for a little while, but started looking at PMGs a little over a decade ago, and then probably most recently some of the Ruby sets like '97. Um, but I remember just going back to credentials for a second. I picked up the Favre '97 credentials, and when I got it in hand, I couldn't believe that they weren't more popular. And honestly, I still can't. I mean, I don't know if you have the image that you can pull up for this one, Austin,
Yeah, I
but
can grab it.
basketball, yeah, basketball's out of
It's this one on the left,
499.
correct? Yep.
Yes, and so basketball's out of 499, and that's famous for being Kobe's rookie year. And then baseball, I'm not a huge baseball collector, so apologies if I'm getting this wrong, but I think they have a couple of versions. There's one that's like out of 99, and another maybe out of 299. But football is only out of 100, and that's it. So they have this really neat star effect kind of all along the border that you can see there. And I'm not like trying to pump these or anything. I've got my complete set. I'm not selling them, but so I've got the four Packers from that set. So in addition to Favre, it's Reggie White, Antonio Freeman, and Mark Chimura. So that was kind of my OG Packers set chase, and I just love it. It was really tough to find the Reggie White. I feel like there's been maybe five or six in the last year and a half that have sold.
Mhm.
Um, but I had those other three guys from 2012 until like 2019 when I finally got the Reggie White. So it took me like 7 years to complete that set. And then just kind of as for some other areas and sets, yeah, like I mentioned a couple of times here, I was collecting the red PMGs. About a decade ago, I randomly picked up some 98s and 99s kind of along the way, and a little before COVID, I would say probably it became sort of my main set chase with '90s Packers cards. I wanted to see if I could collect every '90s Packers PMG minus all the rookies that are not in Packers jerseys. Um,
Would
so
you
my
have
all
selected them if they were in Jersey out of curiosity, even though maybe they
yeah,
didn't have an impact on the team?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, there is one. I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself here. There's an NFL PD of Roel Preston. He's technically in a Packers jersey in the '99 set, but just those NFL PDs don't appeal to me. It's not like Favre. I don't think Favre has an NFL PD or Reggie White or anything. But yeah, I just kind of try to stick to like the main set and the veterans and all that. Um, so yeah, my ultimate goal for maybe 10 years now has been to go for the full run of 90s Packers PMGs, and I am very close. I mentioned it on that other podcast not too long ago that I was 3 away, and I had been 3 away for quite some time. I needed Reggie White, Dorsey Levin's checklist, and the Mark Chimura. And I just picked up one. I'm in the process of using Fund Your Cards for it. You can probably guess which one that is. I'm not going to announce it until I actually have it in hand. But so definitely still need to pay that one off. Um,
I'm not gonna
and
announce it, but I kind of imply it by, listing
yeah,
3 names and one that kind of stands out there, but not to out you or
exactly.
anything.
Yeah, I basically already announced it, but and then I think I have a trade in place for one of the other two, so that
Mm,
leaves me needing just one more to complete the 97
but,
through 99
about 14-year
Packers.
chase there, it sounded like?
Yeah, it's
12.
been crazy, but it'll be one of those things that once I complete it, it'll be like a now what kind of
Yeah.
situation.
What slowed it
But
down so much? It sounds like some of it was simply them not finding them, but was there budget constraints also, like just waiting for good deals on some and you had to pass up on certain ones that you're still missing or that sort of thing?
now there are budget constraints. There weren't before
Yeah.
COVID. So
Yeah.
if the problem was I just couldn't find them anywhere.
Yep.
So there's several ghosts in really any of those sets, I guess. But 98 that comes to mind. There's Derek Mays does not show
Mhm.
up very often. I only know of the whereabouts of 3 copies of that, 2 of which I have, um, and is one that I'm planning on hopefully trading for one of the other 2 that I need. And then Mark Chimura is also very, very difficult to find. I know that it was there was one copy that was recently pulled, maybe like 2
Mm.
years ago. It ended up in a good friend's collection, so I'm happy that he's got it. He's also going after this kind of full 97 through 99 Packers PMG run. Um, so yeah, it's I'm not going after like the green PMGs or any of the gem masters. Those just are not realistic. Um, and I know obviously some like full PMG set collectors have the full run of Packers. But as for Packers fans who are trying to get all these, I've never met anybody who has the complete set already. If there is somebody out there, I'd love to hear about it because, like I said, there's several throughout those 3 different sets and seasons where you've just got some crazy difficult ones to find.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And speaking of cards and packs, I was wondering if you don't mind if I share a card that you recently pulled in a pack.
Oh yeah, let's do
And I
it. Sure.
think we tested this before. I think I have audio. So if for some reason it craps out on here, I'll just, sub the audio in when I edit this. But we have to talk about this one. So I'm just gonna play the audio and then let the audience enjoy the sounds of a sweet pack opening and seeing what this is here. And we can
All
talk
right, here
about
we
it.
go. Gonna rip 7 packs of 1999 Skybox Metal Universe. Hello, Lewis. Oh my gosh, the linchpins in the first pack.
Wait,
That's 1 in 360 packs. Holy crap.
Okay.
Is that right? It's 1 in
I can't read-
360?
I can't read the news. It's too
Linchpins
small.
are 1 in 360.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, Jesus.
Hope it's Favre. That would be incredible.
Easy,
Here we go.
Easy, easy. Come on, baby. Come on. Be something big. Be big.
Brett Favre.
Are you
linchpins.
effing kidding me?
Oh my god. Are you serious?
Oh my god.
No way.
Wait a second. The
I
first
cannot
pack?
believe this.
Okay.
So you got to share. What's the story here? What
That
is
was
that? What did
awesome.
we just hear?
Just brings a huge smile to my face. Yeah. So yeah, this was a fun one. So earlier this summer, I found on Facebook 55 loose packs of 99 Metal Universe football. And it was a decent price. So I figured, you know what? It's been a long time since I've ripped any 90s packs. I'm going to buy these. Is the equivalent of roughly 2.5 boxes. And I'll save it. I'll find some time maybe with my dad and my brother later this summer and just rip a few at a time, right? Like it's hard to go through. I guess it'd be easy to open 55 packs all at once, but I kind of want to pace myself, right? So this was about a month ago. It was with my dad. I regret that my brother's not with me here in this video, and he also regrets that. But yeah, so we decided to open up a few packs of these, and literally first pack, second card there, Brett Favre linchpins, which is just it's just crazy. So it's a 10 card set. So Favre is or really any specific player is 1 in 3,600 packs, which is just wild to think about. So Yeah, it was that was a fun one to pull for sure.
Did you own this card prior, or is
No,
this your
I
first?
didn't.
That's awesome.
It's been on my list actually for a while, I'll say. Yeah. I mean, it's got the really cool like die cut effects of these linchpins in there.
Mhm.
If you've ever seen one in person, they do look really neat. So that's why I'm kind of holding it up to that light background there, just so you can be sure you can catch that.
It's just amazing, and what a cool experience. It's shocking. I don't know for any of those listening too, but if anyone who paid attention online about the amount of crazy stuff that was pulled from '90s packs out in Cleveland. I'm sure you saw some of it. Like I
I did,
saw
yeah.
a Randy Moss collector do this same thing
Yes,
with
yeah,
Mikey in the hobby, I think is his name now. It used to be Mikey the Breaker. But yeah, he pulled a Randy Moss too, right? Out of these same packs.
he
It's
did.
just
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and so fun thing about this set here. So first of all, I'll just say I've got I think it's like 18 packs left. So I'm hoping I can still maybe even. I'm not trying to get greedy, but maybe I
Yeah.
could press my luck a little further and get like a PMG or hey, even a Gem Masters PMG one of one would be wild. That's actually why I was asking you a couple weeks ago if the Peyton Manning
Yep.
has known whereabouts. I'm wondering if it's in any of those packs that I've got for it.
And this year was
Uh,
99, right? I don't think
yeah,
I'm not aware of the
99.
99. I think most people know where the 98 is, but I've never seen the 99. Nobody that I talked to knew where it was either. So it could be in a pack. Who knows?
Yeah, and then 98 has him in his Tennessee uniform, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I think that 99 would be such an awesome card in hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, not too long. Actually, it was right around this. I can't remember if it was right before I had opened this
Mhm.
pack or just after. I know there was a collector who opened up a couple boxes of this same set at Burbank, and in one of the boxes he pulled two Gem Masters, which is just unbelievable. I mean, those are I've done the math on the basketball product, and it's roughly 1 in 330 boxes where you pull one Gem Masters. Football might be a little less because they have some more cards in the set, but I mean, you're talking you should be having to open hundreds of boxes just to get one of them. And so he pulled two. I think it was like the Warren Sapp and Javon Curse. So
Wow.
just a really really neat story. Now, on the other hand, I know the guy who sold those who sold those boxes to Burbank and the people who eventually opened it, and he's struggled to
Come to
kind of deal
terms.
with that. Yeah, he's got some other boxes that he's been opening, probably chasing that feeling a little bit.
No, totally. So one of the fun things we do with the podcast, I know we kind of already showed the card on the left here, but I'd love if you could kind of step through what we're going to call your honorable mentions here for the Mount Rushmore that we'll be getting to. I think you both want to treat both these sort of as an honorable mention. Would love if you could kind of tell the story of the card on the right, and then also, I guess, describe the card on the left if we haven't already, just so people know what that one was that we talked about as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so card on the left is the 1997 EX 2000 Essential Credentials Brett Favre. So that's the one that's out of 100. It's got that kind of starry background, shiny background along the border, and then there's kind of like a clear acetate finish around him inside the border, where it's got this beautiful, like picturesque photo of the sky in the background. Just a really, really neat card, and I've always loved this set. Favre looks great. Looks like he's about to throw a dagger over the middle. 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Um, but I love that set. That's like I said, I've got the Reggie White, Mark Chmura, and Antonio Freeman. Always wanted to complete that Packers set. Um, I also have the all three of the Bucks players from that set, which is Ray Allen, Glenn Robinson, and now Vin Baker. I just picked up not too long ago, and I just think they're phenomenal cards. They're often in basketball they were miscut. They have kind of like a
Mhm.
jagged border if you've seen it, and PSA won't grade those ones. So it's difficult to find those ones that are PSA authenticated and graded with a numerical value. Um, I graded this one. This was probably 2012, 20 or
Mhm.
13 at that first or second national that I went to. And at the time, BGS was really known to be king. So I just happened to, ask a few collectors that were also at the show, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to go BGS." So I graded this one BGS. I don't feel like I have a need to cross it over to PSA as much as I like having most of my PC in PSA slabs. Um, I do like kind of the thickness and just the general feel of BGS slabs. So, I have probably, I'll say like 85% PSA slabs and the rest is like BGS. But yeah, that's a great card. Love that one. Definitely an honorable mention.
It probably helps knowing with that one too, like, I mean, maybe not this set, but authenticity wise, a lot of these cards you've owned for so long where I'm sure you're not worried about that side of things, which I'm sure is nice. Whereas
Right.
I know with 90s BGS, that can be questionable on some of these sets, like I'm obviously you're aware of and others have talked about, but that totally makes sense.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And a
With
great
PSA
point.
for that matter too, don't get, I can't give them a pass, but at least they honor their, grading and will pay you out if it was slabbed and it shouldn't have been. So there's
Yeah.
something to be said there.
That's a great point. And then the one that I've got here on the right is a horizontal card. You got to look at here on the side here. It's the 98.99 Skybox Premium Star Rubies Ray Allen. Specifically, this is the Series 1 that has kind of like the gold shimmery effect to it along the sides and, well, really just throughout the card, I should say. Um,
What
I
what's
I
the
think,
story with this series there? Would you mind sharing? I'm not super
yeah,
familiar about basketball, especially 90s, so I would love to hear. I've never heard of this.
yeah. So the 98 Skybox Premium set for basketball had two different series, Series 1 and Series 2. Series 1, the rubies from that series have this gold shimmery. It's almost like a
Like a
Gem
profile?
Masters
Yeah, that's what I was
effect
gonna
to
ask.
it,
It looks
kind of.
like a football gem masters a little
Yeah,
bit. It
yeah.
kinda
It's
does.
it's it's a
Okay.
gold Gem Masters is the easiest way to explain it. And then Series 2 has kind of you've probably seen it in baseball and football. I think those would be, what is that, 98 for football, and I think it's probably 98 for baseball as
Yep.
well, where they have, it's almost like a radiance type of, like a hyper effect,
Yeah,
I
Hyper.
think.
I was trying to think of a
Hyper is
parallel
the one.
name.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not too well versed in the modern
Modern
stuff, but I
naming.
I think that is the hyper.
Sure.
Um, and so though, so with basketball, you get kind of both worlds, which is really neat. I happen to, I think I like Series 1 Gold a little bit better than I do, the Series 2. The Series 2 is still awesome. Um, and so I just, this was so high on my list for so long. It was number one chase card for me for several years. And I remember, so I was, kind of explaining that the Ray Allen that I traded down from PSA 8 to a PSA 7 allowed me to get this card.
Mhm.
And and so when I had the opportunity, I went for it. This actually comes from a really big time overseas Ray Allen collector. It goes by Carmelo Syracuse on Instagram. And when he told me over Instagram, just DM, this was earlier this year, he said he was, considering making it available. It was, again, one of those moments where I like said to I think I was at a park with my kids and my wife, and I was like, sorry, babe, I got to go figure this out like right now.
Mhm.
So I went and took care of business and secured that deal and had to retroactively sell off a couple of things, just to cover like, a modest amount of the expenses. But I had that other deal that was going and, to trade down, and so I effectively look at it as, okay, I traded down my 8 for a 7 with the championship PMG to get this card.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll take that every day of the week as well
Yeah,
from a collector
absolutely.
perspective. Out of curiosity, desirability wise between the Series 1 and Series 2, is there a preference that's commonly seen, especially like, again, showing my basketball ignorance, but like a player like MJ, is there a clear preference in terms of price and demand for which series people prefer?
Yeah, it's definitely Series 1. The gold
Sure.
rubies effect is just so beautiful, and really doesn't have, there's not another set from the 90s that I can think that's like it. I mean, other than the Gem Masters, but that's silver and they're one of ones, you never see those.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's amazing. And then both numbered the same, both, is it 30, 50?
They're both out of 50. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was an MJ Series 1 gold rubies that not too long ago sold for like close to $300,000. I mean, it's crazy, right? It was a PSA
Don't you
9,
just
so
I was gonna say,
it's
don't you just love that? I always love telling my wife, I'm like, "I don't have this card, but this card just sold for that, but I have this player." Like, who knows? Like, it's just kinda cool, right? And she's like, "Well, why don't you have that one?" "Well, because it's that
right.
amount of money, that's why." She always says, "Why don't you just
Yeah, if
collect
you want us
Michael
to
Jordan?
take
He's the greatest player ever." I love Michael Jordan. I'm like, because of what I could get for the dollar amount. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any
Why
sense.
don't you, Austin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, if I was doing it since 2012, I mean, maybe.
I remember I saw a 98 Michael Jordan. So the one that just sold for 300. I saw a raw
Yeah.
one at a national maybe 7, 8 years ago for like 35K. And at that
Mhm.
time, I was, I mean, I thought that guy was nuts. That's
Yeah.
so I was like, you're crazy, dude. Good luck.
Yeah.
But hey, it's 10x since then.
Quick question before I jump over to your full Mount Rushmore. I just would love to hear, because you've been around so long consistently. Um, how does I guess how I'm trying to think how to word this. So market in 2012, 2013 era, like, again, what you remember well versus today. Where was demand in terms of, and like collector ranking between the big three, big three nineties parallels here, like the PMGs, your Star Rubies, and the Credentials? Was there a clear hierarchy in 2012? And if so, has that changed now in terms of price and demand and what people look after? Like, were any super slept on and then now they're extremely popular? Would love to just hear if you have any thoughts on that. I know I
Mm,
didn't prep you on this one, so
No, that's a good
hard
question.
question, but
Um, yeah, and it's a tough one to answer because I'm not sure I have an answer that's jumping out at me here. But I think from what I recall, I remember credentials being very sought after for a while. PMGs and rubies were probably not too far behind at that point. What I do remember are a couple other inserts that were sort of kings of the 90s when they came out. So like the gold embossed refractors,
mhm, mhm.
numbered out of 74 in basketball. When that first came out, that was the chase card to have of any 90s for any player. And I remember seeing in all the Beckett issues, like this is the number one card to have is the Michael Jordan. I don't think a lot of people really knew about the green PMGs. I know that there were some pictures and you know brief commentary in Beckett magazines about it, but I think it was just thought of as like so unattainable that people almost kind of like forgot about it, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Um, but it is interesting to go back to some of the older Beckett magazines. I don't have the ones from like 2012 era. I've got some from like 99 and 2000. And you look at some of the prices and you just like wish you could hop into a time machine.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was a great answer to the question, but yeah, I mean, none of those inserts were at the level that they are now in terms of desirability.
I'm sure awareness as well, maybe too. It sounds like part of your answer is the awareness is much higher now versus maybe 10 years ago. Is that
Right.
pretty
Yeah.
accurate? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, with the evolution of social media,
Mhm.
Instagram, people sharing what they have makes things more um, not scarce because they have
Yep.
a finite number, but just more desirable. If you want to be thought of as like the top MJ collector in the world, here's some of the cards that you got to go get. You just go check out Instagram.
Yep. And someone even built a hierarchy now. I've seen that. So
Yeah,
little
yeah, right.
Cajun cardboard. Awesome. So big drum roll here. We're gonna jump over to your Mount Rushmore, and it's funny. It's a small drum roll because we don't see the whole Mount Rushmore. Because you have 5 cards, which you cheated, but
I
I'm
know, I know.
totally
I
supportive
can't
of it
choose.
because of the story here. Um,
Yeah,
I know I heard a lot of this on Precious Metal Gents. I'd love if you could just concisely kind of share these 2 cards and what they mean to you, and also, I mean, describe the beauty we're seeing, because these are just incredible. Again, not being someone who collects basketball, but can appreciate these.
sure. Yeah, so card on the left there is the 97 finest embossed refractors gold of Kobe Bryant. So that's numbered out of 74. And then the card on the right is the 97 finest embossed refractor silver of Michael Jordan. So that's out of 263. Both of these cards, well, I'll say that the Jordan card is one that I pulled back when the set first came out. And then the Kobe card is one that my brother pulled about 2 years later. But I remember, my dad and I kind of was explaining how we were opening up packs and boxes and just figuring out kind of what we liked then. We had a local card shop, northwest suburbs of Milwaukee, that he was just stopping by after work one day, and he was asking kind of the local card shop owner, what's kind of the next, like, what next level up. We didn't really have like many premium cards that we were going after. He said, well, there's this new Topps Finest. It's got these really cool inserts in it. You should give that a shot. And so my dad came back with a box and we opened it later that night, and and this card was in it. So the Michael Jordan one. And we didn't know what it was when we first opened it up. So I had my Beckett magazine, pulled it out, and I think the value at the time was like $400. And I just remember we just started screaming. We're like, "Oh, this is amazing. First of all, so easy. Why doesn't everybody do this?" and then, uh, and then, we struck out a couple of times on other sets over the next year or two. And then we came back to this set. I remember there was, this was right around the time when eBay was kind of getting hot. And so I saw a guy who was selling like a bunch of the jumbo boxes of this, and they were going pretty cheap too. And so I told my dad, like, hey, do you want to like split a box? Like maybe we'll pick up one of these. It was $65 if I remember correctly to get a jumbo box of 97 Tops Finest, which is crazy to think about now. And so we bought one, and by the luck of the draw, the seller shipped us the box that had the Kobe. And so um, my brother, my dad, and I remember we were all in my dad's office at home, and we were kind of divvying up the packs, right? And so we each got 4 packs. There's only 12 in the jumbo box, and my brother picked this one and opened it, and I knew what it was at the time, and I remember just like, I mean, we just totally screamed and freaked out, and that was like just such an awesome memory that I have. I really, really wish that I had it on video, or I wish I had like even just pictures from that day of, because I couldn't tell you like the day or really exactly like which year it was. I just remember it was around 99, 2000. And that's kind of when cards were dead for a little bit. You could just pick up whatever you wanted. I remember I picked up the Shaq version of this Kobe card for like $40 on eBay. I mean, it's just crazy looking back on some of the things you could grab back then. And anyway, not to talk about like prices too much, but these cards are so meaningful to my collection. They're never going anywhere. Just to have those memories with my dad and my brother. And I mentioned this as well on a different podcast, but I've had some opportunities to get some with better color, especially that Michael Jordan. There's a few out there that I've seen that have actually really, really strong color, but I can't see myself giving up this copy. This one's 81 of 263 on the back, and that's the one for me. So I'm gonna hang on to these. Probably these are coffin cards, right? I've heard the term thrown around lately, and so I just love having these. I love the story that they tell, and I love thinking about the time that I did pull those, because it really kind of, it almost like catapulted my lifelong interest in cards. So they're just really special.
I feel like you, your dad, and your brother just need to get together and buy a pack of 98 so you can hit the PMG that you're looking for. I feel like
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
only answer here out of
Oh
what
my
I'm
gosh.
hearing.
Yeah, can
But
you imagine? Hit a green PMG of MJ
maybe you'll hit a
or any
stupid
Gem
Bears
Masters.
player or something, or a stupid Vikings player.
Right.
Awesome. So then next part of the Mount Rushmore here is your final 3 cards. And yeah, these are freaking awesome. So excited to hear what you have to say about these ones.
Yeah, in no particular order. I guess I'll just go left to right here.
Sure.
So first card that you're looking at is a Ray Allen Red 97 Precious Metal Gems. I just think that this card is so awesome, so iconic, and I love the jersey that Ray is wearing. I love that it looks like he's kind of going up for like a fadeaway layup
Mhm.
almost, and and his particular card in the set has these like meteors kind of shooting down like across his shoulder. There's one like behind him a little bit too. It's just a phenomenal card. It's one that I always wanted since I got the Andre Rison Packers Precious Metal Gems. And I saw that in hand. I was like, man, I got to get the Ray Allen of this someday. But I remember it was, a few $100 at that time. And so I kind of just pushed it off and pushed it off. And then finally, as I started making some bigger purchases and had more of the means to do that, this was a PWCC purchase back in 2020. And so I remember I stupidly made like a PowerPoint presentation to my wife about how I feel like I need to go after this card. Here's what I'll do. Here are the cards that I'll sell off to make this one happen. And she was very cool about it and very receptive to it. So I did go after it, obviously, and I got it in hand. I really need to get it graded. I know that. I just haven't been able to stomach the grading fees just yet. But the red PSA holder against this red PMG would just look so cool. it does have a little bit of fraying kind of on the bottom there. So if I had to guess, I mean, I shouldn't jinx myself, but I hope it at least earns some numerical value rather than like an authentic. Um, would be it's probably like a 5 or a 6. Anything above that would be just gravy. But yeah, I love that card, and we'll hold on to that one for a very, very long time.
Awesome. Appreciate the share.
The second card there in the middle is the 97 EX2000 Ray Allen Essential Credentials Future, numbered 248. So this is the pink edition. Um, the now version is lime green, which is one that I would eventually love to add as well. Very tough to find, but this was another one that in the same vein as the red PMG, I really, really was looking for this one for a long time. Once I started making bigger purchases, this was probably number 2 on my list. It was the red PMG, this one here, the Credentials Future. Um, and I cannot say enough about how cool these EX 2001 cards are. The base cards are terrific. You've got like acetate, you've got shine, you've got just really unique bold colors, great images. Um, it's just everything that you would want in a 90s card. It's such a cool set. And I remember another great card that that I pulled. I did pull a Credentials Future from this set out of one single box that I bought as a kid, and it wasn't Ray Allen. It was Daniel Marshall. But I remember when I saw the Daniel Marshall, I was like, man, wouldn't that be cool if one day I could own a Ray Allen? So this is just one that I kind of dreamed about having in my collection for 20 something years before I was able to land it from somebody off of Facebook. He had a raw copy, said it was decent, and I'm not going to argue with a 7. I think that was a pretty fair grade for this one. Um, so yeah, really happy to have that one in my PC. That's not going anywhere for a long time as well.
Awesome. So, quick question there. Again,
Yeah,
sounding like you were able to find this one through Facebook a few years back. I just curious question from someone who is more of a spectator of the 90s. How would you view yourself today if you had to buy these things at the current pricing? How would you even go about it? Would you have to reanalyze what you're trying to do here? Again, not to dive too much into like your personal finance or anything like that. That's not really where the question's coming from. Just more so like, I guess, how can you stomach the current pricing? Because you kind of luck out already having them, right? So it's kind of like, you know what I'm saying? You know where I'm getting
yeah,
at there. Like, it's a tricky question, but I'd love to hear, like, if you have any thoughts on that for new people coming into this market.
yeah. If you're brand new to the hobby, I mean,
Stay away from the 90s. Is that it?
yeah, just don't go after. I mean, honestly, Austin, like I don't know if I would realistically be able to go after these cards these
Hmm.
days with the current values that they hold. Um, and I'm not looking to sell them either. They just mean so much more to me to have them in my PC than they do, dollars wise and all that. Um, maybe if you've been in the hobby for a little bit of time, you've been maybe more into kind of the modern stuff, and you have kind of a set collection where you could consider consolidating, and you're interested in getting into 90s. That's, I think, an easier way to do it is going through consolidation efforts. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're coming fresh into the hobby, like trying to go after PMGs and credentials, especially if you don't have necessarily the financial resources, it's really, really tricky. I don't know if I have great advice there.
Well, maybe some advice is I just thought of this randomly, but I feel like a cool thing about this is you can always do the base cards for these sets. I mean, again, it's silly. It's not even like, the same close to level of
Yeah,
rarity and anything like that. But like, my God, these base cards out of these same sets look freaking awesome. Like the Ray Allen here, the 97. Just thinking out loud here, my brother recently got me back into Pokemon a little bit, like the sets we had as kids. And it's so refreshing, and like everything's like $5. Like I can totally see the merit to like binder collecting a set like these, without needing to get the credentials to please yourself. But I get why people need that. But it's kind of a random thought I was having, especially with these designs. They're just so damn cool. Whereas like today's cards, I feel like the base card to a parallel, it's like maybe much, much drastically different. I mean, these are too, but you get kind of what I'm saying. Like even the base cards in the 90s were still so freaking awesome.
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, not everybody needs a PMG or credentials. There are different levels that you can collect at, um, including the 90s, like you said. So, and even if you go after, I mean, there's inserts that are 1 in 24, 1 in 96 packs. They look fantastic. Like one that comes to mind is the Net Assets. So that's EX2000. They got some great looking die cut designs with that. There's Competitive Advantage out of like 98 Skybox Premium. It's got like these kind of looking Roman column things along the edges. If you've ever seen
Oh
that
yeah.
one,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know those
Great
ones.
stuff.
Those are
Yeah.
great cards. And actually, I pulled an MJ as a kid in a local
Oh.
card shop out of that one, and I let that one go like 4 or 5 years. I just kick myself every day
Is it
for
like
it.
shop owner here? I'll trade this for 5 packs. You'll do it for me, like that sort of thing.
No, it
Oh,
wasn't that. I guess I was starting to consolidate a few things
sure.
around that time, and so I let go of a few things that I had pulled that I'm trying to get back the original copies, and it's proving much more difficult than than I thought.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean these are, to your point about the base cards. I think that the what you see there on the left, the two cards on the left, 97 Metal Universe and 97 Skybox EX 2001 for basketball. I think those are maybe my two favorite base cards of all time. Um, so great opportunity there to get into those. And actually, the so where you see the pink in the Ray Allen Credentials
Mhm.
Future there, if you look at the base card, it's got a very like a Flare Showcase row one, kind of like a shimmery effect
Hmm.
to it.
Okay.
It's just really, it was so ahead of its time, and I just really, looking back on it, I really appreciate how Arena Designs, I think, is the company that did a lot of these with Skybox. How experimental they were,
Mhm.
and how they really did kind of change the game with the hobby. So yeah,
Totally. Awesome. What's the final awesome looking card here?
last one is easily my favorite Packers card that I have in my PC here. So this is the '98 Metal Universe Brett Favre Precious Metal Gems, and that's numbered 250. I picked this up a couple years ago raw off of Facebook, and I
This
got a
Facebook man, it's all Facebook.
yeah. I mean, look, just like I said, I'm a lucky collector. I just happen to be in the right place, right time sometimes. And and so this guy, he said he specifically was looking for a trade, and I started messaging him back and forth. I figured somebody would probably scoop it for the price that he was asking at the time, and luckily he wanted some MJ cards that I had actually, and I had them in high grades. Um, so we kind of went back and forth for a few weeks. I still was, of the mindset that, like, oh, he's probably going to let this go. He's not really going to take my offer here. He'll get a better offer, and tomorrow it's coming. And lo and behold, we ended up continuing to talk for, I think it was maybe 4 or 6 weeks, and finally reached a deal. I wanted to get some vouchers from him, and I hadn't seen his name before, and so there was a little bit of risk there. And he was actually really cool. He sent me the card. He sent me this
Wow.
Favre card before I even shipped my stuff out. Like I just happened to have a few guys who were able to vouch for me, and he was cool with that. So he went ahead and did it. I can't speak highly enough about him for that. And then I did have some questions about the serial number on the back, because it's kind of it's a little bit off centered. I didn't give you a picture of that one, sorry, but I kind of went to some of my guys that I know in the '90s space that could help me authenticate that. And so that's kind of what extended the time as well. And yeah, so it was like a close to a 6-week deal before, from the day that I saw it on Facebook to the day I got it in hand, and we had completely executed the trade. Um, Very happy with the stuff that I gave up. I feel like I can get back in maybe lower grades eventually, but I find myself almost not missing them. I kind of think of like, well, that was sort of the gateway to allow me to land this Brett Favre card, and that was really great. And then I graded this one I think it was last fall, and was just kind of crossed my fingers. I mean, you, I hate to say you never know, but you have an idea, and then it's kind of just within a point or two, maybe, unless you completely miss something. I thought this was probably 7 or an 8, and so when I saw 8 kind of pop, I was pretty thrilled with that. Interestingly enough, though, I think there are 3 10s out there of the Favre.
Wow.
Yeah, which is just wild to me. And then there's maybe think there's 3 or 4 nines as well. So this lowly 8 that I have is just trash.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you don't
It
care, and
it's
I'm sure you're
No,
most
not at all.
happy to not hear, do not holder, like, unauthentic or, something like
Yes,
that
yeah.
on that order. Oh my gosh.
I remember when it popped, I was, again, with my wife, we were waiting to board a plane, and I was like, "Okay, just say a prayer for me. Just, like,
Yeah.
hope it got a grade. Just give me a number to it," right? So,
No, totally, especially after waiting all that time.
yeah,
So be
exactly.
remiss if I didn't ask here while we're on, what the heck do you think of the Favre market right now? Like, is there just one
Oh,
person
yeah.
coming in with a lot of money? Like, what is your consensus and idea here? I know and reason I'm asking, right? I saw the credentials. There was a credential sale, like everyone else saw. I think it was the 4 out of 4 of
Yeah,
the
the now.
now, and it was like over $100,000 or something. Just shocking price tag. What is your thought on the Favre market? Again, I keep hearing everyone talking about like, wow, what's with Favre all the time? All of a sudden, like, why is everyone paying such stupid high prices for it? Do you think it's just simply because these cards had never popped up and there was a waiting audience for it? Or do you think there's just one buyer coming in and just dropping money all of a sudden on this kind of stuff?
Well, I don't think it's just one buyer because I think there were multiple offers that I've heard of that were right
Hmm.
around that $100,000 range for the 404 copy.
Yeah.
And
And I think
then
of the rubies too, for instance. That was
the
another card
rubies
that
had
came to
bids,
mind
right?
recently. Yeah.
Yeah, that was all on bids. And then there was a 24 karat gold
Yep.
PSA
That
8
too.
that
Yeah.
sold for, I think it was 25 grand. Um, yeah, it's been fascinating to watch it all kind of unfold over the last, really just the last month or two here. I feel like, our generation is kind of, we're what, 20 to 30 years out now from when some of these guys played in the 90s, and you just start to kind of see the effects of nostalgia take shape
Don't they
almost.
always say it's like 25 years? That's what I've always heard. It's something like that, isn't it? Like it's a I don't want to say like a psychological thing, but I've always heard that it's always 25 years after. That's when the peak nostalgia is, and maybe it's also with people's earnings. With us working now
Yeah,
and
I mean,
stuff. But I've always
it's
heard that.
it's the two of them lining up, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of the perfect storm, right? So you start to, these people who, or these collectors who wanted these cards back then now have the financial means to go after them, and it's like you said, yeah, 25 to 30 years later, and you can still have it for a huge portion of your life. So it's yeah, it's I don't think it's I think it might not be at these peak levels here to stay, but I do think that it's going to be very challenging to go after any other grails. And I think that's why I kind of stay so focused with my PMG chase right now. Like I can't go after a 97 Rubies Brett Favre. I can't go after, like, even a 98 Rubies is still, crazy expensive these days. And so I really am kind of picking my spots and trying to keep as focused as I can with some of the sets and players that I tend to chase.
I say it's kind of got to be nice knowing you have your lane set, so you can kind of just view these sales as a spectator and kind of that's interesting, instead of a, oh my gosh, this card's I'm never gonna get it anymore. It's gone.
Yeah.
Way past my price
Yeah,
point. Uh,
there's definitely some sadness to it all. Like I'm such
Which is
a
funny because you own so many. So like a lot of people think, I think
yeah.
people view this and think like as a collector, a person would be like, woohoo, my cards are worth all this money. But I have never felt that. I don't know about yourself, but it never feels that way. It's always like,
No, I
crap, I
don't.
can't go get these anymore.
I would love it if cards came back down to earth again. If they came down to like 2010, 2012 levels. Heck, even, I mean, if I could get golden Boss refractors again for
40 bucks.
$40, like,
Yeah.
I'd take that every day of the week. So if everybody else wants to exit the hobby, I would be the first one to line up and be very excited about it. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. To your point, like, I don't think of, I guess I think of my cards as like maybe a nice safety net if I want to save up for my kid's college or whatever. I guess that's probably important.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I don't think of like the monetary. I think of the joy that these cards give me, and all the excitement that I have, the memories for, collecting them. So it's, yeah, it's, but yeah, the Favre market has just been on fire on another level, and I think we'll only see guys like Jerry Rice, Barry Sanders. They'll continue to keep going up. I feel like Favre is probably the third most collectible '90s football player. Like, you've probably got Barry's number one, Jerry Rice number two, then Favre, right? I mean, who else would
That's
be
so
who
you
else would be
because
kind of
I've
number
always
3?
heard to view that as like a tier 1, tier 2, and not that it's really that way, but it is sort of right price wise, like you're getting at. And then you have the Favre tier that might also include like what Emmett Smith, like some of these other guys, or do you think Favre
Emmitt Smith, Steve. I
is
think
higher? Marino. I mean, I don't
I
know.
think you
Yep.
can make the argument. You know, you've got definitely like a top 6 or a top 8, and I think I could be talked into most of those guys there. But I think in terms of who's collectible, I probably would put Favre above guys like Emmett Smith, Troy
Mhm.
Aikman, uh,
Marino,
all
Elway.
the Cowboys guys, really.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Let's push them down. No, yeah, Young, yeah, and some of those other guys you mentioned, Marino and Elway too.
It's been a freaking blast, man. I normally do a fast 5, but I have to go to bed. I'm so tired. We went to a
Yeah.
Wisconsin thing. We went to a I'll share this before we go. We went to a you'll appreciate this. We went to a supper club, had some cheese curds, had a couple old fashions, and I am zonked. So this
Oh,
is
there you go.
I'm sorry it is the first episode. I never did a fast 5, but I have an early meeting, so I have to go here.
No worries. I'm sorry to talk your ear off. I could talk
No,
another
I
hour
could
about this
I
kind
could
of
do it for
stuff.
2 hours. This is way too much fun. We'll have to have you on again.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
definitely. Thanks for having me on, Austin. Looking forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sal. I hope you have a good week, man.
All right, you too. See ya.